Hello and welcome back to Boxing Social in association with Betfred. My name is Ayman Khan and I'm here. Well, Canelo Alvarez takes on Caleb Plant this weekend live on BT Sport Box Office and Showtime pay-per-view, where the winner will emerge the undisputed super middleweight king. With me to talk about the fight is the one and only Carl Frampton. Pleasure to meet you, Carl. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. Not too bad myself. Carl, let's jump straight into it. I know that you've got a little bit of insight in the sense that you've trained alongside Caleb Plant before in your career. So I just wanted to pick up on there from kind of what you kind of saw from Caleb in the time that you actually got to spend with him.
Yeah, well, saying I trained alongside him, it was a couple of sessions. I was getting ready for the second Leo Santa Cruz fight in Vegas, and he came to spar George Groves in Sean Porter's gym, which is where we were based. And I didn't know who he was at that point, but he was with PBC, and the guy who I was dealing with, a guy called Luis de Cubas, kind of told me about this kid, Caleb Plant. Keep an eye on him. He's very, very good. And he sparred George, and I was extremely impressed with what I saw. He was a very, very good fighter. Um, and at that point, George was kind of just beginning a training camp. He may not have even been in a training camp, but he was out of shape. He was heavy and stuff. But I remember just being really, really impressed with what I saw. And he's a nice guy too. Obviously, he's got this persona of, I suppose, arrogance and flashiness, but he's a nice guy, really nice guy, and yeah, just a quality fighter.
We followed kind of Canelo's career, so we kind of know a lot about Canelo and what kind of he brings to the table. But just sticking on Caleb Plant here, I know you've been watching tape of him. I watched the BT Sport preview show the other day. I was wondering what issues you feel from the assets that Caleb Plant brings to the ring. Do you think he can take into the fight to cause Canelo those problems?
Well, he moves well, doesn't he? And I think if you go back to, um, I suppose, the Golovkin first fight, I thought Canelo lost. But then you go even further back, and Lara, Arasandle Lara, probably definitely give him trouble, and a lot of people thought that he may have won that fight. Very, very close, but I think the Plant has the ability to be able to move like Lara, but I think that Canelo's a better fighter now than he was when he fought Lara. Um, so I think that he has the potential and the kind of skill set to give him trouble. Certainly, I think it's really interesting that he's brought in Andre Ward and Virgil Hunter into his team as well, and that kind of gives you a bit of an indicator of how he's going to approach the fight. We know, well, I think I know how Andre Ward would have fought Canelo, and I think that's a style that could give him problems, but I just feel like he'll be able to work Plant out at some point. And although Plant's an amazing fighter, I just don't think. I think if you've got that style, that nice moving style at this point in time, you need to be able to punch extremely hard too. If you can move like Plant and punch like Golovkin, then you've got someone who might be able to beat Canelo.
Carl, at some point in the fight, if Caleb is going to come out the winner, he'll have to stand, he'll have to dig in, and he'll have to trade and come out on the winning end of it. How far will Caleb Plant have to leave that into the fight so that he has enough time to kind of gather points on, so that you don't think, that the distress signals of Canelo kind of closing down the ring come? So how far into the fight will Caleb Plant have to
I don't
stand
think
and
he has
trade?
to. I don't think he has to do that. I don't think he has
Okay.
to stand his ground at all. And I think, to be honest, it's if I was his team, I'd be telling him it's the last thing you want to do. And obviously, we all know how this game works. Canelo is, the superstar in the fight, and close rounds will probably go to Canelo, especially in Vegas as well. But um, if I was Plant, I wouldn't be standing trading with him, with Canelo at all. I just think it's a wrong approach for him. I don't think he punches hard enough to do it, and I think it's something that he's done in the past where he stands and trades with fighters, and he gets a bit brave. But I think if you're Plant's team at this point in time, you are just kind of drilling that into him, that movement is key to giving you a chance of winning this fight. As soon as he stands still and has a fight with Canelo, then that's right up Canelo's street.
A lot of people have made reference to the psychological edge that potentially Canelo has due to what happened at the press conference that led to the cut under Caleb Plant's eye. Carl, do you believe what happened there has led to an edge there being given to Canelo because Plant came off that losing end of the altercation?
Yeah, it's people, people watching stuff like that, and sports fans and boxing fans, they become almost think they're sports psychologists, and they're not. And I just don't see it as being a much of an issue. He's probably a little bit embarrassed that he threw a slap that missed and got slapped twice himself. I don't think he's not gonna be getting into the fight thinking, oh flip, I can't even hit him when he's standing chinos and loafers. How am I going to hit him in a fight? I don't think that's going to be an issue. But what I do think will have been an issue is the cut under his eye. And we were probably it was probably maybe 5 weeks ago, something like that, when it happened, and that's got to affect his sparring a little bit. He might have had to take a week off. He may have had to spar with a full face guard. I don't know if he normally spars with them or not, but it's definitely affected his preparation a little bit just because of the cut.
Have you noticed in recent months a different sort of Canelo? I mean, we used to not hear too much from him, but we've seen a bit more. I think I think the word I want to use is ruthlessness from Canelo. You take the Andrade incident, take the Plant presser, for example, comments regarding Ryan Garcia. It seems like Canelo's kind of brought out his personality maybe that we haven't seen before.
I think so, but I like it, and I like what I'm seeing, and I think it depends on the opponent. Obviously, seen the things that he said about Ryan Garcia and maybe not being as dedicated as he should. It wasn't as if he was ruthless and called him a waster or anything. He just gave him a bit of advice. But I think if you look at his, I suppose his approach to fights with Plant and Billy Joe, two guys that try to wind him up and get under his skin. I like to see that. I do like to see it. But I think if you're going to be respectful in the build up to a fight, then Canelo will show you respect as well. But yeah, I like everything I'm seeing at the minute, and not that he's Mexican who speaks Spanish. Not that he has to speak English, but I like that he's speaking English because I speak English, makes things a bit easier. And I like that he's just being himself, and I like it, I really do. And people seem to like it too.
It seems like in these last couple of fights with Canelo, it's been a bit of animosity, Billy Joe Saunders and Caleb Plant. From their perspectives, is that what you want to kind of do? Try to get under the skin of Canelo and poke the bear a bit to see if you can unsettle him?
Well, I think that's probably the plan. I think that Plant has been talking and mentioned the drugs, field drug test, which has definitely annoyed him. It's definitely annoyed Eddie Reynoso as well. But I think the plan is to get under his skin, and they may get under his skin in the build-up to the fight and the a press conference. But I think he's one of the most composed fighters that there's ever been, and you can see that he doesn't mind when he's lost a few rounds to a fighter. It's almost like he just knows that he's trying to work his way around him and figure out the patterns that they're making in the fight, and he knows that at some point he's going to get them. So I think he's very, very composed. I don't think that wind him up in the lead up. I don't think it's going to have an effect on the outcome of the fight.
So, Carl, coming to the fight for both fighters, if Caleb Plant was to win, I know you alluded to it a little bit earlier. How does he do it? And if Canelo was to win, how does he do it at the weekend?
Well, Plant has to move to win, and that's in my opinion the only way he can win the fight. Loads of movement and trying to outbox Canelo, like I suppose Mayweather or like Lara. But Canelo's a better fighter than he was against Mayweather and Lara. And Plant certainly isn't the fighter that Mayweather was. I'd say he's comparable to Lara, I think. But Canelo can win different ways. He can knock Plant out. He could win by getting close and kind of bulldozing him. He could win by countering him as well, because he's one of the best counter punchers of this generation. So I think there's more than one way that Canelo can win the fight. But I think we know what Plant has to do to win it.
Carl, from anything from the what we've seen from Canelo throughout his career so far, are there any questions left unanswered about his skill set at all that you've seen?
No, I think he's the most complete fighter of this generation. And I think if you have a young kid who you're coaching, you talk to them and show them Canelo. You show them how he fights. In terms of his head movement. If you want a fighter to improve head movement, just show them Canelo. If you want them to improve ring generalship, how someone controls their movement in the ring, you show them Canelo. Combination punching, you show them Canelo. Countering, slipping and punching, you show them Canelo. I think he's the most well-rounded fighter of this generation.
What is your actual pick as to how you see the fight going?
I think Canelo, maybe a late stoppage.
And people they're kind of battling between maybe a Terence Crawford, a Usyk, Canelo Alvarez for that pound for pound spot of number one. Does he, if he claims a super middleweight undisputed titles this weekend, does he reclaim or still hold on to that number one spot?
I think he's number one, personally, and I don't think there's too much of a debate. If I'm being honest, I think that the debate is about who's number two, really. But Canelo, in my opinion, is number one and just further cements his position as the number one pound for pound fighter if he beats Plant, which I think he will.
Where does he go from that point? I appreciate obviously he wouldn't want to overlook Canelo, but there's talk of there's David Benavidez out there. There's talk of maybe Spence coming up at like a catch weight, Triple G at super middleweight for an undisputed fight. Are those fights that you want to see for Canelo?
Yeah, all them fights interest me. Benavidez is a good fight. Golovkin fight, still an interesting fight because it's kind of the trilogy. But I think that at this stage he beats Golovkin easier than he did in the second fight, which was close. But I give it to I did favor Canelo in that fight. And I think the fight that's been mentioned at light heavyweight is Beterbiev. It's a mouth-watering fight, a huge fight, and I think Benavidez gives him problems. I think that he doesn't win the fight, but he gives him problems. Golovkin's a good fight, but I think that Beterbiev potentially, could be the man that beats him. But I think if that fight does come off, it'll be in Canelo's favor. I think they'll do it below light heavyweight. Beterbiev will have to get the extra poundage off or whatever. But the future is still exciting, and I'm liking that he's still being so active, and he's talked about continuing on for a number of years to go.
Carl, a couple of final things from me, just while I've got you here. Shakur Stevenson versus your old foe Jamel Herring. I just want to get your reaction to that fight a couple of weeks back.
A brilliant performance from Shakur. I fancied him in the fight. I thought he was going to win it, but I didn't see it. I didn't think he would be so dominant. But he'd won every round, and I think it was a fair stoppage from the referee. Although knowing Jamel, he would have liked to have stayed in there because he was still on his feet. But he was taking a bit of a pounding. But clearly an extremely tough guy. And Shakur was dominant, and yeah, it was a very good performance.
And the other thing I wanted to touch on was we've seen Anthony Joshua go to a number of US trainers. One of them was Eddie Reynoso of the Canelo team. I was wondering, what do you think of that fit specifically, and the other fits of the other trainers that Anthony Joshua went to visit over in America?
I think that looking to America for trainers is a good thing for him to be doing. I think that without talking about who he goes with and what trainer, I think what he needs to do is have one trainer, not have. He's talking about still keeping McCracken involved. You want to keep McCracken involved, Rob McCracken, have Rob McCracken as your trainer, and get rid of the other guys, Fernandez and whoever else he has in his corner. I think he needs one trainer. But I think it's a wise move to be going to America. Like Anthony Joshua can't do anything in the UK. He can't walk down the street without being hounded by people. In the States, although he's still a global superstar, in the States, not as recognizable as he is in the UK. So I would advise to go with a trainer, have one. You don't need two boxing coaches. Well, you only need one, and get back to being a big brute, which he is. He's not a fancy Dan boxer mover. He's an athletic specimen, and a powerhouse, and he just needs to just remember that again, and hopefully whoever he goes with kind of reinstalls that into his way of thinking.
Carl, let's leave it there. Thank you so much for speaking to Boxing Social. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.